TGI Friday, everybody, and welcome to the Fun Astrology Podcast for December 20th. Thomas Miller here. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to show you something real quick before we jump in, and we're going to talk mostly, obviously, today about the solstice, but I wanted to talk about these drones for a second because I'm hearing people ask about it. Folks, we've been talking about this for probably 2 years at least. Pluto is in Aquarius, and that is a battle over technology and control. And in the United States, at least, where these drone things are appearing, this country, I mean, it's so clear that it is so divided right down the middle. Gemini and that Mars-Saturn conjunction in the United States solar arc chart that Robert Glasscock talked about a lot, that's the division that we have right now. That is the split. We are as much split as we were in the 1860s. And what we're talking about with Pluto in Aquarius is this control through the use of technology. And that's exactly what's going on here. And it's what's going on now. They're talking about we're going to have bird flu or cow flu or some kind of thing. I mean, this is exactly what's going to be taking place. And the one thing that I would advise or just suggest is if these things are concerning to you right now, what I would advocate is you get on your highest timeline. You do the soul searching that you need to do in order to know which side of the equation you want to be on, which side of the split. And that's exactly what Ray Merriman talked about in that incredible video that we launched last weekend, that hour-long interview with him about the Forecast 2025 book. That's what he says. When Saturn and Neptune move into Aries, that we're going to be talking about the protesting and the standing for what you believe in and the lack of apathy that we have in the world right now. But that's exactly what's going on, is Pluto, change, transformation, control, Aquarius, technology, drones. Everybody's afraid, Pluto and Saturn. And then Neptune obviously still is making its way now out of Pisces as it approaches Aries early next year. I mean, this is all a big crescendo, and this is exactly what we've been talking about. And I know there's been a lot going on this week. I felt it too. The person that I'm out here taking care of had to be put in the hospital this week. One of our listeners lost their job. Not only that, they cleaned the whole company out, literally. So, and then, of course, all the things going on in our world. So it is, I mean, these are tough energies that we're dealing with, and I'm going to show you this in the chart. It's very clear. We have both sides pulling on each other right now. But I did want to just mention briefly that we are going to be having this event. Liz, Grace, Kristin, and I are going to be at the LA Arboretum, and that's going to be December 29th from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. If you're in the Southern California area, we would love to have you come join us. We're just going to hang out, enjoy the Arboretum. It's $15 to get in, and we're going to talk about Pluto in Aquarius. And we'll probably have more to say about that after this event. Now, let's jump into the chart for the big event of the day, and that obviously is the solstice. It happens Saturday at 4:21 a.m. Eastern. The sun enters Capricorn. Now, if you look at the middle of that chart, you would think that your toddler spilled spaghetti out of the high chair onto the floor. I mean, it is a very busy chart. But before we dissect that, let's just talk about solstice here for a minute. Solstice comes from the Latin sol, S-O-L, which basically represented the sun standing still. And we're going to talk about that phenomenon on Wednesday's special Christmas edition next week. But the point of origin of these December festivals, at least for our reference, I think goes back to ancient Rome and their Saturnalia festival, obviously for Saturn, the lord of this festivity, because Saturn rules Capricorn, the sign the sun entered Saturday or will enter Saturday morning. So to the Romans, Saturn ruled agriculture. And their December festival was a wild, week-long carnival that started on December 17th and went for 7 days. They celebrated the next harvest, but they also knew that without seeds being sown, there would be no harvest the next year. And believe me, there were lots of seeds sown during this celebration, and not just in the ground. They had feasts and gambling and lots of jokes and gags and fun. They gave gifts. They also basically tossed out most of their societal moral constraints for this week. And that's what's ironic, because the early Christians grabbed a hold of Saturnalia and built two of their most sacred events around it: the birth of Christ, the Christ Mass, and Easter, the fertile harvest. Steve Forrest even talks about this in his Book of the Moon as he follows the cycle of the moon phases. Many of these ancient holidays were built on the moon's influence. But it's ironic that Saturn, Lord Karma in modern astrology, to the Romans was more like the Easter Bunny than some dark, odorous lord. Spiritually, what the Romans celebrated this time of year was the amazing process of Mother Gaia always providing for us season after predictable season. Now, let's take a look at the chart, and I do want to clean this up a little bit because it is a little bit busy there, is it not? So let's first take a look at just the squares and the oppositions. Now, what we're looking at here is this configuration right here, and I'm doing this on the video, drawing these out. If you can check over on YouTube, you'll see this exactly. These are called T-squares. That is two planets opposite each other, and then a point planet is 90 degrees from the two that are opposite. And we happen to have not just two, we have three of these in Saturday's chart, three of these T-squares. Now, when you take the T-square part and put it together with another one on top of each other, that's called a grand cross. And these are the most, we'll say, challenging aspects in astrology. So what planets are on the corners of these big aspects that we have this weekend? Well, Jupiter is opposite Mercury. Also, the moon is opposite Saturn. So those are the oppositions on that one. And then on the other one, the south node of the moon is opposite the north node of the moon and Neptune, sitting close enough to each other to be counted in this. Now, in addition to all of those planets we just mentioned, the other one that is a point planet is the sun that has just moved into Capricorn for solstice. And even though it's not part of these configurations, these T-squares and grand crosses that we're talking about, Mars is still opposite Pluto, and that's where a lot of the challenge has been coming from. So, I mean, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and if you look on the video, you will see that, my goodness, everything is basically circled, and that's exactly the issue that we're dealing with right now. This is tough energy. I mean, I'm telling you, this is challenging, tough energy. Now, we do have an offset to this, and that's the positive side. And on the video, I cleared out all the red lines, and we're just going to look at blue lines for a minute and take a look at the most positive aspect in the sky is the mystic rectangle. Two trines, those are the long ends of the rectangle. Two sextiles, those are the short ends. And we have a couple of more sextiles and trine, or one more sextile and two trines in the chart as well. And this involves some of the same planets. Pluto is on a corner. Neptune and the north node of the moon is on a corner. That means the south node is on another corner. And Mars, that bad boy in retrograde in Leo, is on yet another corner. And those additional lines that I mentioned, Jupiter is trine Venus. That's what Elisa talked about yesterday. And Mercury is trine to Mars. So here again, almost everything on the chart, if you look at the video, is circled. And there's one more I wanted to bring out, and showing a picture of it on YouTube, is the quindecile. Now, this is an interesting aspect because some people call it quindecile, and it really is basically an astrological term representing an angle of 165 degrees. Who are the planets that are in the quindecile or quindecile? Well, Jupiter is in quindecile to the sun, and I'll tell you what it means here in a minute. Uranus is in a quindecile to Mercury, and then the moon is quindecile to Neptune. This is an aspect that could best be summed up in two words: compulsive destiny. All right? It's something that is pushing toward something happening. That it's like a fated kind of thing that's unfolding, and yet you are going to step into it. And I know this gets into some areas of fate and free will that get a little bit scary, but that's how you basically interpret a quindecile or quindecile. And again, note the planets we're talking about, the two luminaries, Jupiter and Mercury, Uranus, Neptune. I mean, this is incredible. So this solstice definitely has a punch. Energy is high right now. Tensions could be too. This to me is the kind of chart that could blow. And this solstice season says, be careful, exercise caution, be slow to react. Think of the duck's feathers, just let the water fall off. Let petty stuff fall away this holiday. Let it go. I mean, we cannot put that in our ears enough right now. Be careful traveling. Mercury is challenged by both Jupiter and Saturn and is in a fire sign of division. It's opposite Jupiter in Gemini, division. You see where I'm going with this? Now, that mystic rectangle looks karmic to me. It looks like a twist of allowing, just like those quindeciles. This rectangle to me says, allow what's happening. But let's do what the ancients did as well. And let's celebrate, and let's party, and let's have some fun, and let's celebrate the good things that we do have in our lives. That's the purpose of solstice. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you back on Monday. Thanks for watching or listening to the Fun Astrology Podcast.